Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. Just before we get started, I just going to touch on this very briefly. You don't have to get off and send me condolences and things like that. Chief died this morning, and he's greatly missed. My friend of 9 years or so. He was a rescue. He was quite old, and he's gone. And if you pray for me that I recover from this. I'm rather sure I can do the broadcast today. He was in great suffering at the end of his days, so it's a happy thing. Okay, let me and thank you all so much for praying. And some of you know more about me than others, I guess. And the way we worked in the house is the big dogs were considered my wife's dogs, and Chief and Yafa were mine, who were both gone, and I would take care of them. And that's interesting to some of you thinking about Jerusalem, of course, and I don't live in Jerusalem now, all the way up in the north. And the other thing is, for quite a while now, maybe as much as 3 weeks, I've been praying in the Spirit many, many hours a day. Now, when I first got to Israel, what I used to have was like a rule of thumb. I used to pray in the Spirit about 40 minutes a day. What's the number I arrived at? And it used to make my life much better. Really. I mean, it really did. And when I got to Israel, the Lord was telling me to knock it off with the praying in the Spirit all the time. And that's many, many years ago. And now it's started up again. And normally that means something big is happening. When it's like this, I mean, and I enjoy it. I get great peace when I pray in the Spirit. Okay? If you don't have the baptism of the Holy Spirit, and I know we're all disjointed and separate from each other, and that's probably part of God's plan. If we were all together, we would be in the right doctrine with the right Yeshua, the right spirit, and God would just not be able to stop from giving us the blessings and all the gifts of the Spirit operating and so forth. So, this is my idea, the way I look at it, okay? And then we would be doing signs and wonders, and it's before the time for that. And that would cause the nations to go crazy right away. It wouldn't be in right time. So that's one reason why. But that's going to stop when Elijah, starts working openly. A lot of you are going to want to come over here, and you will. You will. You have to consider that when that happens, and the temple or the tabernacle, it won't matter much. But when we read Malachi 3, we're reading distinctly about the temple, but possibly the tabernacle precedes it. I don't know. Now, this is the tabernacle that Jeremiah hid in Mount Nemo in a cave and sealed it up in 2 Maccabees chapter 2. And that book appears to be historically accurate, so I tend to believe it. Plus, it fits in with other prophecies, such as Zechariah, I think it's 2. It says, Jeremiah says, when the Lord shows mercy to Israel, they'll have the tabernacle. Well, the mercies to Israel is not the appearing of the sign of Son of Man. Yes, it is, but the mercies come in the year of redemption, the year of redemption, and that could have started, on January 30th. There's no scripture that says right at 12:01 in the, well, that's Gregorian time, right in the minute it starts, that he has to start too. Remember, year of recompenses has the day of vengeance in it, and the year of redemption also has it. So there's an overlap of that one day, the day of vengeance, and that could likely be Zechariah 12:6, when the two witnesses burn people up surrounding Israel. But there's Elijah training the Levites to make the offerings acceptable to the Lord. It's a big thing, and that's going to have a lot of blessings to it, i.e. mercies. Okay, and we see in Ezekiel 37 that we'll have the tabernacle and the temple both. Now, when the Israelites were in the wilderness, they had the tabernacle with them and the glory God of Israel. Now, we don't read in Malachi 3 of the glory God of Israel in the temple. We read in Ezekiel 43 him coming from the east, going into the temple. So possibly the tabernacle is for when the people come on the great Exodus. They stopped in the wilderness, and I don't know where the wilderness is. Okay. Likely very close to Israel someplace. Okay. Would it be in Israel as we know it today? No, I doubt it. And so if we, with the temple, there's going to be a lot of people from the nations that are going to want to come over and pray in the temple. Someone's going to have to teach them a lot of things. Like what's a lot of things? Like, what is Shabbat? When does it start? When does it stop? How do you observe it? That's big. Okay. They're going to need to know why a temple, why the Kohanim, why the Levites. Most of them don't understand that Apostle John is one of the two witnesses. They focus on Elijah and other people that can't be, like Moses died, and it says in the scriptures it's elected for man to die only once. Well, Moses already died, and the two witnesses died. It can't be Moses. For the same reason, it can't be King David. So the anointed prince in the temple cannot be King David. It's somebody from King David's lineage, his line. Because everything is shifted from the Aaronic priesthood to David's lineage. Yeshua was the cause of that, or the reason for that, however you want to word it. So we got a good case that the temple will be there, and you'd have to fight these people away with a stick to stop them from coming to Israel to see the temple, pray in the temple, and so forth. But they need to understand the true gospel. Probably almost none of them do. Some of them might believe in the temple and so forth, but this is, who's going to do this? Who do you think? You have to have the true gospel. Okay, that's how I'm looking at it, things like this. I mean, we could say Elijah's going to run around and train the Levites, train the Kohanim, train the Israelites, and, my gosh, it's one guy. There needs to be question and answer periods, a lot like what Yeshua did with the disciples. So now the nations come, and they're going to be highly confused as to what's really going on. What do you mean Zechariah 12? What are you talking about? Malachi 3, 4, what are you talking about? The 2/3 cut off, what are you talking about? What do you mean we're supposed to observe Shabbat? What do you mean denominations and variants are going to keep us from the kingdom of heaven? As per Galatians 5:19-21. Well, they need to drop out of the denominations, don't they? And they need to stop with variants. They have to get together in one accord, like Acts 2, the early Messianic congregations and the Apostles' doctrine. In the middle of this, I'm rather sure we'll have the gifts of the Spirit in heavy duty fullness. So, how would you get here? Well, I don't know. At this point in time, you could probably just jump on El Al and fly over. It might be Phillips Airlines when he, that's a joke phrase, when he was with the eunuch, and then afterwards he baptized him, and then boom, the Lord just translated him to some other place. He didn't have everlasting life to the best of my knowledge, but he went. So, you understand? So that could be how you come to. There likely is going to be a training facility up in the north, as I understand it, where they'll come, and I expect it would be structured like a hotel. And they'll need to be in fellowship with people with the true gospel, them, their children, spouses, or by themselves, however it plays out. Now, this could be maybe after, or I don't know, but what's a Shabbat? What's Pesach? What are the go-up feasts? I mean, we could just sit here and make long lists. When Yeshua is going to return. How about the 270s in Daniel 9:24? You see, we could sit here all morning and talk about what they don't know. So, how thin could Elijah be stretched? And maybe Apostle John does the nations while Elijah's working with the Levites. I don't know. We talk a lot about praying for Elijah to emerge, and please keep doing that, but also pray for Apostle John. Chances are he knows the time is close, and he's been waiting very long, and which would make me pretty sure he has everlasting life or something that lets him live this long. And he may not be young, he might be old. I know things, but I have not met him yet. And I don't know a thing about the anointed prince, so should pray for him too. I mean, let's not leave Apostle John out of the prayers here, okay? I imagine things are hard for him, and he's probably can't wait to hook up with Elijah, and Elijah can't wait to hook up with him, and the two together will be stronger, So that's my introduction. So, what next? Let me run into the live stream, make sure we got a live stream. The bottom line for my little discourse is we're close to Elijah appearing. Make sure we got a live stream. All right. Thoughts on the deportations. It's stirring up the pot. We'll get into that stuff in a little while. All right. I'm going to get my posts up now. So I can't talk too much when I'm doing that or I'll make typos. Now I'll put my email address up and we'll move forward. Be done quick. My wife's persuaded me to go on a carnivore diet like she is, and I'm going to do it. Started today. Okay, get my notes. Oh, we got to talk about what's going on with Egypt. This is weird. I don't have a good handle on what's really going on because I'm sure there's behind the scenes stuff with Netanyahu in Egypt and Trump, and they're not talking about it. But here's what we know. Egypt, right next to Gaza, which would be Sinai Peninsula, has moved a very large, and I mean large, amount of tanks, armored personnel carrier, other vehicles, and troops to this border area. And they're in Egypt. And this violates the peace or ceasefire deal that Israel's had with Egypt in many years. And what's up with this? Now you know as much as I do, but there are pictures of these vehicles. Now, putting some tanks and some soldiers up there to stop the flow of Gazans into Egypt could be real, or to stop construction of tunnels or something, but this is a lot. I don't know what's going on. The movement of Gazan civilians to the north of Gaza is taking place. There's 100 mercenaries that are former U.S. military special forces that are searching them and their vehicles to make sure they're not bringing weapons up into the north. These people are being paid $1,100 a day. And because they're Americans and they're earning this money outside of America, they don't have to pay the income tax on it. So if they do this for 6 months, they're making like $180,000 tax free. Although there is a limit as to how much you can make tax free. I don't know what the limit is today. Okay? And that's weird. They're also trying to control the flow of food to Gaza. And the Gazans are always bellyaching, we don't have enough food. But we think it's just a lie. And I think because these mercenaries are controlling the distribution, so it's not all going into the hands of Hamas. Now, we need to get into the Hamas-Gaza ceasefire with Israel. There's violations on both sides of the ceasefire. What's going on now is there's 73 hostages that it's believed that the Hamas has, possibly from lists they've given. I think 59 are alive and the rest are dead. Some numbers like this. The numbers may not be accurate. They could change. I don't know. All right. So Israel, for the first round, which takes 6 weeks or 43 days in reality, Israel's going to get a small amount of these hostages and release 1,900 plus terrorist prisoners in the Israeli jails. Some go to the West Bank, some are going to Turkey. I don't know where the rest of them are going. Okay. They're going to, for the most part, start operating as terrorists again. Israel has a war, not a big major war, but a light war in the West Bank, where we're having, our IDF is having combat experiences, shooting Molotovs, IEDs, all kinds of stuff. We're even using planes and drones against them, armored vehicles and tanks, and they are continuing every day. This is going on. It looks like the Palestinian Authority, which is run by Mahmoud Abbas out of Ramallah in the West Bank, which is Samaria and Judea in reality, but they call it the West Bank, is trying to go in and take control over Gaza, along with soldiers from other countries. Which countries those are, we don't know. And try to run it. Now, everybody involved, including foreign countries, including America, I believe, don't believe the Palestinian Authority is capable of doing this. I don't think they have a prayer. Okay? So, I don't think that's viable. So, who's going to run Gaza? If we let Hamas run Gaza, let me walk you through what's going to happen. Okay? They're going to get funds from many nations, or the UN, or UNWRA, or whoever is going to give them a lot of money to rebuild Gaza. That, I think, is a given. Okay? Now, when you rebuild Gaza, you can't just take the Gazan people and say, here's a shovel, dig a foundation for this building. Well, if you got a building that's 6 or 10 stories high, the foundation is going to be, 50 feet, 60 feet or something, 40 feet. How are they going to dig a hole like that with shovels? They'll be there for days and days and days. So they're going to use, backhoes, bulldozers, pile drivers to put the foundation in. They might have to drill. The water lines are out in much of Gaza. That's got to be restored. Electricity has to be restored. The lines. Sewage has to be restored. The roads have to be put back in. And you've got to get the foundation, then you got to get the building up, then you got to do the work inside to make rooms and put doors and windows and toilets and sinks and light fixtures and doorknobs and cabinets and all this stuff in there. Elevators. Each of these things require special skills. They can't take the Gazan people and say, okay, you're going to build an 8 or 10 story building. It would make, it would make the Leaning Tower of Pisa look straight. You can't have that. So specialty people need to be brought in from other countries. They would probably use Muslims from other countries whenever possible. And now you have a problem with Hamas doing things to them, like taking them hostage or stealing equipment and raw materials to make tunnels with instead. I don't know, but it's dangerous. And if you're going to be rebuilding Gaza with any substance, you can't be building 4 or 5 buildings and wait 3 or 4 months and then do another 4 or 5 buildings. The population was over 2 million. 90% of the structures are damaged or gone. So you have to have enough crews to probably build 20 or 30 buildings at a time. That's a lot of people. Thousands. So if they start launching missiles and rockets nearby these construction sites, how does Israel destroy the missiles or the missile launches by the construction sites? Bomb it again and destroy the structure and kill the workers? You see? Israel can't attack them. They put missile launchers in schools, build next to buildings right outside hospitals. Roofs of hospitals had them. UN buildings right outside mosques, schools, everything. You can't. They'll do this to the workers, use them as a new flock of human hostages, but they're not Gazans. They're foreigners. So what do you tell them? You've got to move away from here. We're doing a missile strike. What would the workers do? They'd move away. Then what? They'd probably go home. So then when the strike comes, the work they did just gets demolished. You see the problems? It's not hard to see. The media won't talk about it. That's one of the reasons Trump wants to deport them, or as many as possible. The plan would be probably to use U.S. mercenary forces, ex-special forces, not 100, but probably bring, 1,500, 2,500 in, so they could protect an area. So they would bring foreign workers in to an area, maybe, 5 or 6 blocks by 5 or 6 blocks, and work that area up. And the mercenary troops would surround it and keep, probably put some barriers up with fences. They could be schoolyard chain link fences for that matter, right? And, with sensors and lights and watchtowers and gates that they have to come through and check their ID. They probably issue them some sort of a photo ID, a worker's photo ID. America could do that. Wouldn't be that easy to counterfeit, nor that hard. And, search what's going on. They don't really have to worry about searching it that much, but keep the Hamas away from them so they can't put missile launches there. They can't harass these people. They can't shake them down. They can't kidnap them. If there's women, they can't rape them. And they can't rob from them. They can't steal the equipment or the raw materials or anything from them. So the people come in to Gaza at, 7 in the morning, and they drive into this restricted area that they're doing construction in. And they have to pass through a gate, and then they're free to work there during the day, and then they go home. And another shift, they'd have round-the-clock security there to make sure Hamas doesn't get in. You understand? This is the logical way it would proceed. If you don't do this, they'll just corrupt the whole rebuilding. They don't care about the rebuilding. They're getting paid to attack and harass Israel, not to rebuild Gaza. Iran's not going to give them salaries and say, look, we're in a new era now. For the next few years, calm down with Israel and you go to work and rebuild Gaza, Try to get enough housing for at least 500,000 people before you start up again, something like that, right? That's not the case. Iran doesn't want them to do the rebuilding. Iran wants them to continue the attacks on Israel and make life unbearable as much as they can in Israel. So they're not going to be able to charge into Israel again. So they could start with the Katyushas and other stuff. I'm sure they still have munitions hidden there that we don't know about, and start launching again at Israel. They would wait until Israel has completely moved out of Gaza, which is what they want. And what they're really going to want, you see, we're going into phase 2 negotiations, maybe when Netanyahu gets back from Trump. Netanyahu left to see Trump already, and the meeting is Tuesday. So Trump understands that if you leave the Gazans there, this is going to start up again because they got 2 million human shields. So even if you got 1 million of them out of there, it could help because you could push them into one portion of Gaza while the rebuilding takes place in another or something like, but he's probably going to try to get, more like 1.2, 1.5 million out of there. So he said, we're going to go put, back. We're not finished with Egypt and Jordan saying no. Okay. And then we see Egypt put tanks and armored vehicles on the border. So maybe that's to stop Trump if he comes up with some goofy idea in the eyes of the Egyptians, that we're just bringing the Gazans into the Sinai Peninsula and we're going to put up a tent city. See, this would be a likely outcome of this. I don't think Sisi, the guy that runs Egypt, the president, I think he's called, is at all interested in taking one Gazan in. They're taking, I think, 50 a day, and they're bringing them into Egypt, the wounded, the injured, Hamas, and so forth, for medical treatment. Now, some of them probably going to need surgery, and they're going to stay in the Egypt hospital for a few days, or maybe in some cases 3-4 weeks even. But then when that's over, they're going to go back. Egypt's going to see to that. Okay? He doesn't want 100 or 200 or 500,000 Gazans coming into Egypt and joining the Muslim Brotherhood and stirring the pot. Okay? Now, I don't know how Trump's going to play this. Trump may just decide that Egypt is just not going to do it and look for another country. But remember, the two countries he wants is Jordan and Egypt, and the transportation to either one. With Egypt, they could walk in, literally, walk into Egypt. With Jordan, they'd have to be put on buses and transported under military guard, but that's not a big trip. I don't know, 3 hours, something like that. It's easy. The buses would do one run a day. It would take time to load them up, then drive them with a military escort, then drop them off, offload their baggage and luggage, turn around, go back to Gaza, fuel up, clean the bus out because they'll be dirty, I'm sure, and then in the morning come back and take another load. It's not that hard. They could even do a load in the morning and then come back at night and do another load and run at night, use a different driver. I don't know. So it's not that hard to do, okay? It would probably involve like 300 buses and figure 40 on a bus. You run the numbers, they're going to dent it in a month. And, so far nobody's really begun any reconstruction. They had the first truckload of cement come in yesterday. I don't know what they're going to do with cement other than try to redo their tunnels. How about that? You see, when you collapse a building with explosives like bombs, missiles, rockets, artillery, mortars, you need to the whole structural integrity of the thing is shot. The building collapses down on the foundation. The foundation's not valid anymore. So it has to be dug out, and you got to pour new concrete and make a new foundation. Now, if you're doing a 2-story house, the foundation's no big deal, But if you're building apartments, even 6 stories, you need a pretty decent foundation. If you're going to go for 20-story buildings, you need a serious foundation. Okay? And, I've seen them construct hotels in San Francisco, and the foundation is huge and big, and it goes down a good 60 feet, maybe 80, maybe 100. It's really deep. So if you're doing an 8 or 10-story apartment building, I don't think you need to go that deep, but I would think you would be going 40, 50 feet. You got to do something, And then the buildings that were built over the tunnels that were destroyed, their integrity is gone. I mean, it's just a mess. And then you got to run the sewage, the water, the electricity, maybe gas lines. You got to rebuild the hospitals, the schools, the government buildings, pave the roads, make parking spaces, traffic lights. All this stuff is gone. So Trump's figuring just move them out of there, and then internationally, the rebuilding of Gaza is going to fall apart. Because they're going to say, why are we rebuilding this for Hamas? There'll be some feeble token efforts, but they're not going to be significant nor lasting. Okay? It's going to be more or less to make it look good. All right? And if they do that, they're going to keep Hamas away from the construction site. So, if you got the Gazans out of there, like 80-90% of them, the rebuilding goes off the table. And it doesn't cost much to move them out of there. And Trump doesn't want to pay for it. He'd rather move them out. They're never going to come back. Trump knows that. Now, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is likely going to invest $1 trillion that Trump asked them to. I think he was up to $600 billion he was going to invest in America. He'll probably go higher, but he may want some time to do that, maybe not. And, he wants to get into G7, and Trump may help him. Trump, Netanyahu want an Abrahamic Accord with Saudi Arabia. I don't know what benefit Israel's going to get out of this. I really don't know. I know flying our civilian aircraft over Saudi Arabia saves a lot of flight time in certain flights. Okay, that's an advantage, but it's certainly not worth jumping overboard for. Selling of military weapons would be a big thing for Israel, and that would be worth something. But Israelis taking tourism trips to Saudi Arabia, what are they going to do? Go to the Black Rock? What are you going to do in Saudi Arabia? The UAE has stuff to do, not Saudi Arabia. But anyway, Trump wants it. Now, I mentioned this months ago, and I'll bring it up, and you need to be aware of this. As a lot of you know, there's different divisions in Islam. There's the Shia, or the Shiite, and the Sunnis. Saudi Arabia is the Sunni. Now, the Sunnis don't believe, I'm going to keep this simple, that the Dome of the Rock is significant in Islam. The Shiite believe that Muhammad rose from earth to heaven at the site of the Dome of the Rock. Okay. The Sunnis don't believe that because the dates that the Shiite have for this Dome of the Rock going up to heaven business, which isn't true, is inconsistent with the lifespan of Muhammad, so it couldn't possibly be the case. So they don't respect the Temple Mount as more than just a big mosque to them. It's no big deal. Okay? So what Saudi Arabia is promoting, now wait till I'm finished and you'll see this. What Saudi Arabia is promoting is a shift in Islam from de-emphasizing the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque and putting a lot more emphasis on the Black Rock in Mecca, another idol. It's all not true. That shifts Saudi Arabia more to the head of the pack for the Islamic faith. Maybe Saudi Arabia is interested in doing a caliphate and using America to help them and using Israel to help them. Yemen is Shiite and they oppose Saudi Arabia, but we know Edom, which is Yemen, is going to be devastated. I don't know the day of the week, but it's going to be devastated. Maybe Trump will do it, maybe Israel will do it, maybe both, maybe other nations. I don't know, we got to wait and watch it unravel. So the Saudis are also maybe possibly going to replace Jordan as the caretaker of the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Jordan is very weak. The king is weak, and he could get the boot. He really can get the boot. It wouldn't be a lot to see him get the boot out of office. So if the Saudi king, whatever, he's a prince now, I think the father's still alive, if the Saudi prince becomes the caretaker of the Dome of the Rock, he's going to de-emphasize the importance of it. See, the Shiites believe this. They have a text or a book in Islam that's not the Quran. It's called the Hadith. And in this Hadith, which is more or less of a commentary on the Quran, I don't believe in the Quran at all, but I mean, it's nonsense, but that's what they believe. So they, in this Hadith, what they teach the Muslims, which many of the Shiites adhere to, is that the Israelis with the red heifers are going to kill them and use the ashes to make the water and purify themselves. Then the ultra-Orthodox will go up to the Temple Mount, which is not the Temple Mount. Okay, the mountain's gone. It's not, but they teach them it is. Go up to the Temple Mount, which the real site is 800-900 feet away, something like that, even maybe 600 feet away. But many, many centuries ago, an army dismantled the Mount Zion, where the temple would go up. And when we get the new temple, which I've covered many times, comes down from heaven, read Ezekiel 37, the last 3 verses, you'll get the drift. And you could also read Malachi 3, and building a temple that matches the blueprint of the next temple, which we call Ezekiel's temple, would, by man, I don't know, take years, but we don't have any building directions. There's a door here. Okay, how many feet high is the door? How wide? How thick? What wood? What covering? What color? What kind of handle? What's the floor made of? What color are the walls? What's on the walls? See, the instructions that were given to Moses and Aaron were how to build the tabernacle were in great detail, and God even raised up workmen that would know how to do the work. But none of this goes on. And when you read Ezekiel 43, what we're told is that this information we're getting in Ezekiel chapters 40 to 48 about the temple, that's 9 chapters, is so we would understand the rules, the ordinances, and the law of the temple. Okay? So this is another change to Moses' law. Moses never gave us the law for the next temple, but Ezekiel passed it on. So, without dwelling on the fact that Moses' law has been modified, let's keep going. The So we don't know how to build the next temple. If you read it, you can't possibly understand how to do it. Now, we build the altar. The altar stays out of the temple in the inner courtyard. And if you were looking at the steps on the eastern side to go in the temple, facing the steps, the courtyard would be sort of to the left of the steps and maybe down a little bit or something, right? So we are told in it's Ezekiel 43 how to build this altar, the brazen altar, in detail, so we know how to construct it. And we also know the cleansing practice of 8 days. So we know how to build the altar, but the altar doesn't come with the temple. We make that. Okay? So this temple obviously comes down from heaven. There's no other thing. And it says in Ezekiel 37, I'll read it. It's just 3 verses. Now I know this is not taught, but don't blame me for that. It's in your Bible. And don't take a position, oh, I wasn't taught that, and therefore you're going to then say it's not true because I wasn't taught that. You know, don't do that to yourself, okay? Ezekiel 37 verse 26. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I will place them. That means put them. The word for place is Natan, Strong's number 5414. Place them, multiply them, and will set my sanctuary. Well, this 7 or 6 or 7 words later, they take the same word Natan and they don't translate it as place, they say set. It's the same exact word, so it's place, my sanctuary. That the word for that is the temple word, mikdash. In the midst of them forevermore. The middle of us, the middle is Jerusalem. My tabernacle also shall be with them. There you go. Now maybe that's to go out in the wilderness. Maybe the glory God of Israel goes to the wilderness too. I don't know. Maybe the 2 witnesses are in the wilderness too. I'm not sure, but somebody got to be there with the people. So you've got 3 contenders here. Well, you have a 4th. You have the glory of God of Israel, which is an angel that God put his name, Jehovah, in, found in Exodus 23, verse 20. You have Apostle John, you have Elijah as a possible, and you have the anointed prince from the line of David as another possible. The word anointed means he's anointed, so maybe he goes, although we don't ever read of him there. I wouldn't be too quick to say that's the case, but it's a possible, but a thin one, and I wouldn't consider it likely. So you basically, I think you have Apostle John, Elijah, and the glory of God of Israel, and who's going to be there? Well, the glory of God of Israel would need to have somebody with him, like he was with Moses and Aaron. He spoke with Moses and Aaron in the seat of mercy in the tabernacle. Moses and Aaron gave it to the people. I don't think that would change. So it could, but I don't think so. So Moses and Aaron, well, then maybe Elijah and Apostle John would do it. Now, when you read Ezekiel 20, starting in verse 33 to the end, what we read is that the people go in the wilderness on their way to Israel in the next great Exodus to pass under the rod and enter into the bond of the covenant. The ones that play games in the wilderness, like adultery, robbing, lying, calling on unclean spirits, the sins, they're going to die in the wilderness. They don't go to Israel anyway. We know that. I assume they die in the wilderness, like what happened with Moses and Aaron and the people of Israel. The others then come in. Now, how long is the time in the wilderness? I don't know. Do I think it's going to be 40 years? I don't think there's a chance of that. I was thinking maybe 40 days, like the time that Yeshua went and fasted, maybe something like that. but I don't know. It doesn't tell us. So there's going to be tabernacle and a temple. So back to verse 27 of Ezekiel 37. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Now listen to this. And the heathen shall know that Ani, Jehovah, I, Jehovah, I think it says Ani, yes, I, Jehovah, do sanctify. Now the word for sanctify is kadosh. It means holy. The holiest, the holies is kadosh, kadashim. Kadashim is the plural. It means holy. They translate it as sanctify. Close but no cigar. Ani Yehovah, I Yehovah do sanctify Israel. So the heathen will know he made Israel holy when he's the temple, the sanctuary, shall be in the midst of them forevermore. This is not New Jerusalem. When we read Revelation 21, it says there shall be no temple there. Okay? It's not New Jerusalem. It's the next temple, Ezekiel's temple. You read about this in the whole book of Joel, Joel 1, 2, and 3, which does deal heavily with Gog and Magog. You read it in Ezekiel 40 to 48. You even read it in Zechariah 14, and you read it in Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11. I know they're not in the habit of teaching this, but don't shoot me. I'm giving it to you out of your Bible. Okay? I have many Bible studies in my YouTube channel about things like this. They're in the live section, and you can search them and enjoy yourself if you like. Okay, let me check the live stream. Okay. So this could likely happen because Trump would want to downgrade the importance of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Okay, does that mean that Israel's going to go in there and bulldoze it and put it up? No, I don't think so. Now, what I think is going to happen is See, I used to think, and I used to pray with some of you years ago, that when the time came for the temple to go down, from the mosque to go down, we would bring Chief, and he would go to the bathroom on it before we knocked it down. And I never let go of that until more recent months, when I realized when he builds the next Mount Zion up again, for the temple to be on, that'll destroy the area with it. I'm quite certain the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque is, it'll just collapse and turn into rubble and that kind of thing. So maybe that's one of the reasons the Lord took Chief. I don't know. But I don't believe that anymore. I think it's going to go when the mountain comes up. And that'll be supernatural. And this temple comes from heaven. And I know they don't teach that, but the Bible does. So you have to decide what you want to follow. The Bible or various teachers that are not teaching the Bible. Maybe they don't teach all of it. That's not good. All right, so let me get my notes. The Abrahamic Accord isn't going to do Israel much good, I don't think, unless I'm missing something. I don't know. And Trump would likely like this idea because it'll make the chances for calm in the Middle East bigger. I don't know what's up with Egypt. I don't know. We'll have to see. Now, we need to talk about what the implications of these tariffs are. Trump already put into effect 25% tax on Canadian goods, maybe not everything, but a lot of goods, but only 10% on oil and gas. And he did the same with Mexico already, 25% in general on Mexican goods, 10% on oil and gas. So they're going to retaliate and put 25% tax, well, Canada said so, on American goods. And Trump said if they do that, he's going to double it from 25 to 50%. So I've been conveying a theme to you for some time now that Trump is doing too many things at the same time to too many people that are allies of America. He wants to tariff the entire EU. He hit China with a 10% tariff. Marco Rubio went down to Panama yesterday, I think, or the day before. Probably yesterday, to meet with them and talk about the Panama Canal. They're going to lose a major portion of their income if that goes. They export fruit and vegetables, but do they have a lot of manufacturing down in the country? No, they don't. They don't. They're not making cars, refrigerators, washers, dryers, wristwatches, televisions, medical equipment, motorcycles, airplanes, weapons. There's nothing going on there. They got the canal, and they got their agriculture. That's it. So Panama tells Trump, well, we'll put a 90% tariff on your exports to Panama. Trump will say, we won't, just fine, we'll stop selling to you. Go find another place to buy it. And what they would also do is raise the fare, the passage fare for American ships passing through the Panama Canal. They would probably put this on any American flagged vessel, but since many vessels are not flagged in America but used by American companies, they would probably put it on any ships going to or from America carrying cargo. They'd probably increase the fares significantly, maybe 25%, double it again, I don't know. And that's just going to irritate Trump. Taking over Panama, you got to understand, for Trump, is a possibility. I think it would take Trump 8 to 24 hours to take over Panama. They have no army, no navy, no marines, no air force, nothing. They got a police department with 9mm pistols, and they probably have, a few hundred assault weapons and Uzis and old stuff like that. That's all they got. They might have 3 tanks to protect the Capitol if there's a civil unrest or something. They don't got nothing. They don't have anything. All Trump has to do is take 5,000 Marines or so on 3 landing ships, maybe an aircraft carrier offshore, or maybe use these landing ships that carry about 10 or so vertical takeoff F-35s and a bunch of helicopters, and probably just send 3 of those. And they're just going to land and take over the canal. Throw the people out of the canal, and then I guess they would bring people to fence it off and learn how to do the controls of the canal and stuff like that. They might have to do something to get their own electrical supply. I don't know. The only possible recourse that Panama could have, they can't use the UN because America would veto it completely, and they'd have to get, I think, everybody on the UN Security Council to try to drop America out of the UN, and then they probably need a General Assembly massive majority or something to do it. I don't think that's feasible. Many countries would veto it. Trump would see to it. So what do? Go to China? China's not interested in having a war in the Panama Canal. The price is too high, and it's too far away, and they're not that worried about it. They do the cargo handling facilities in Panama. Whoopie-doo. Great. So what? They leave. That's what happens. They would just leave. So, where would the troops stay? Well, the base property, which also had an Air Force base called Fort Howard, which was maybe 15 or 20 miles away. When America left, they basically handed that over to Panama, and the government sold these houses to people as residences. So you have private people, Panamanians, living there. So I don't know how they would deal with that. I don't know. America is rather good at building housing for troops rather quickly, especially if they're not taking, airplane attacks and missile attacks. They would probably build a tent city for 5,000 people. It's not that hard for them to do. It would take them 10 days maybe. They would probably go, you need air conditioning down there. They'd probably go for wood floor tents with a fly, like a second layer outside of it, because they get heavy rainstorms there. So if you put, these would be large tents as barracks, and if you put the fly over it, a big, thick, heavy one, the rain would stay off of it, elevated off the ground by a foot or two, or three even, with the wood floor, would stop flooding, and they would have communal toilets and showers, mess halls, and they'd have to put air conditioning units in and run them with generators, and they know how to do all this, and plus run electricity, run internet, and all. It may take them more than 2 weeks, but they could do it. Okay. The rainy season in Panama is going to be over very quickly. I would think by March it's finished, or definitely by mid-March. So their monsoon kind of rains wouldn't be happening until the next year. And they just keep it. Now, they're not going to put 25,000 soldiers there, because if the Panamanians decide to rise up against them, they are going to have ships in the water that can, launch helicopters and jets, and then they're going to get on the horn, and planes could make it from America probably if they really were hauling, in an hour, probably more like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes or something, most 2 hours, 2.5 hours even, yeah. And they would have the skies full of jets, probably using aircraft carrier. So I can't imagine Panama doing any resistance. The neighboring countries aren't going to do anything with Panama, because Panama removed itself from the Organization of Central American States. They're the landmass that connects South America to Central America. It's a jungle in Panama, and that has a lot of drug traffickers going through it, because they need to go from South American countries like maybe cocaine or morphine or heroin or opium from Colombia, Peru. Let's use those examples just to take a shot at, They'll have to go north, go through Panama, get into Central America, then get into Mexico, then get into America. So the other thing that I think Trump would like to do is topple the anonymous banking in Panama, where the lawyers sign for the bank account of the owners, and the the money can't be traced. So if they're going to take over Panama, they can just break into the offices of the lawyers and the banks and produce the records, because somebody has to know who's behind it. In case it blows up with human smuggling or drug trafficking, the lawyers have to have a back door to get the heck out of it, or they wind up being what's called legally the beneficiary owner, and they go to prison for 30 years. So they have to get into the records. And Trump may want to do that because it's a lot of illegal activity. And he would probably like to shut that whole thing down. So also he's trying to drive people back to America for banking and stuff. So Trump and Marco Rubio were probably trying to bribe Panama. You know, they could come up with giving them a lot of money, probably drag it out over time, or I don't know what. Hire them to run and maintain the canal while they administer it and run it and have control over it. And Trump wants to enforce sanctions. So when he puts sanctions on countries, he's going to stop these countries in some instances from being able to use the Panama Canal to hurt them more. It adds to the power of the sanction. So Trump's got several reasons to go through with it, but do you really think Trump will invade the Panama Canal? See, there's two canals. One of them is the old canal, which America had really spent the money to build. Then the other one is a new canal. I don't know, maybe it's 8 or 10 years old or less even, I don't know. And the new canal can handle bigger ships like aircraft carriers, huge container ships, big troop transports, lots of things that the old one couldn't handle. So there's military strategies bearing in this too. And if Trump controls the Panama Canal, he has an added advantage in terms of being able to, I was thinking about Chief, I'm sorry. He has an added advantage in controlling the waters. Okay. Let's go. I heard Canada might stop selling oil and natural gas to America, and Mexico may take the lead also in that. But that's not going to hurt America. It's probably going to cause a price advance, but nothing substantial. I wouldn't get too concerned about that. The Mexican cartels have authorized, this is crazy language, their cartel members to use weaponized drones against ICE, law enforcement people by the border in Mexico. Now, this is not the Mexican government saying, we authorize war on it. It's the cartels. And America took it seriously because they warned the ICE people about this. Okay, I'm sorry with the numbers. After the first phase of the ceasefire with Gaza, 59 hostages are going to be remaining in Gaza. And I believe 35 have been declared dead. Now, these numbers are going to probably vary a little bit over time, but maybe not. And they're starting to negotiate the second phase of the plan, or they will when Netanyahu gets back from Trump. So Trump's probably going to have input about that. So a lot of people in Israel want to get these hostages back. Trump does. So I don't know what is going to happen. Okay, they're going to want Netanyahu to completely pull all the soldiers out of Gaza. This is just a weird thing right now. And I don't know what's going to happen with these negotiations. The right wing parties in Israel want the war to resume after the 6 weeks. I'm reading my notes. And they are basically going to turn against Netanyahu and do a vote of no confidence if he continues this way. So there's a very balancing thing. Basically, the ceasefire between Gaza, Hamas, and Israel, I'll cover Lebanon and Israel, and the Houthis, basically, guys, is held together with spit and bubble gum. Really. In Lebanon, the regular Lebanese army is supposed to be occupying Lebanon during the 60 days and keeping Hezbollah away and getting rid of the Hezbollah weapons. And they've done not much of anything. And they're even escorting the civilians, which include Hezbollah dressed as civilians, back to houses in South Lebanon, and the Israeli soldiers have not left. So that ceasefire was supposed to be extended to February 18th. And it's, like I said, held together with spit and bubble gum violations on both sides. With Hamas, the same thing. If Netanyahu doesn't get the rest of the hostages back, he's going to have more protests in Israel, more people complaining, but he's probably not going to get thrown out of office. If he pulls the military out of Gaza and lets Hamas run Gaza, I am rather certain Smotrich and Ben-Gvir will pull a vote of no confidence on Netanyahu. They generally come in at about 15 votes, but if Netanyahu does this, they may come in at 18 or 20 votes because a lot of people are going to side with them. And that's going to mean Netanyahu is sucking wind, and he's got to try to stay in office. Now, you need to understand that Netanyahu has 3 criminal cases, active cases against him that are already been around for years, and they're in the trial process. He's even testified many days. So if he's not prime minister, the Supreme Court, who is trying to basically neuter and take that power away, is going to accelerate the trial. They're going to say, Netanyahu, your excuses are up. Come to court, or we'll lock you up for not coming to court. And then he's got to start testifying. And the cases are not that good for Netanyahu. They're pretty bad. He'll go to jail. And the total, if you got maximum, is 16 years. I would think he'd probably get about 3 years, but he would never be able to hold office again and stuff like that. Netanyahu might be able to negotiate his way out of this mess by just telling the Supreme Court, I'll sign an agreement with you, and they'll say no agreement's court order, and they'll get a court order that says Netanyahu shall never hold a political office again or be involved in the Likud party, probably, and everything else. And he has to agree to that court order, and then he wouldn't go to jail. But he's out of power, and who the heck's going to come in next? I have no idea. I don't have a clue. Maybe there is no next. Maybe that's when Elijah starts working and the government is neutered and it never bounces back. When you read Zechariah 12, there is no IDF and there is no Israeli government that we read about there. So maybe that's the interplay here. See how you take the news and you look at Bible prophecy and you try to put the pieces together. You don't really know for sure until it happens, but you can get a good idea. Okay. So Netanyahu may go down, you know. I don't know who they would put in. I don't think Smotrich or Ben Gvir would get in. But Smotrich or Ben Gvir could possibly, one of them could pull off the defense minister's position. Ben Gvir was security minister in charge of police in Israel, maybe just in the West Bank or something. Can't remember. And Smotrich was economic minister, but they might make Smotrich defense minister, and he's extremely right wing. I don't know what's going to happen with this, but it's a possibility. Now, Netanyahu's good at finagling his way out of things. Okay? He's good at that. And he might come up with some way to keep in power. I don't know. But there's a lot of people in Israel that don't want Netanyahu to leave Hamas in charge and just guarantee that in weeks, months, or maybe a year or two, which prophetic time doesn't allow, Hamas is going to act up against Israel again. Everybody knows that it's 100% chance if you leave them in power there, if prophetic time runs long enough, I add in, they don't want this. They got Hamas where they want them, in a weak position. Most of their tunnels are destroyed. Most of their weapons are gone. A lot of the people are dead. They're busted up. They're weak. They're at their most vulnerable. And they don't want to give them a second chance. Some of the other people in Israel say, let's just get all the hostages back and just we'll try to live with these idiots. It's not. You can't. Now, Lebanon, that situation might be able to be negotiated because now they seem to have a government. And Trump and Netanyahu may be able to work with them and push them harder to strip Hezbollah of their weapons and keep Hezbollah from returning to the south. That situation could maybe negotiate a little, but we know Lebanon's going to get busted up plenty bad. Open your doors, let the cedars of Lebanon burn and other things. Lebanon's going to suffer, not just at the south. Okay? We know all this. We know Jordan's going to get it, which is Ammon and Moab. We know Edom's going to get it, which is Yemen. We know Iran's going to get it. This is from Jeremiah 49. It's called Elam, and they get devastated so bad, all the people leave Iran, scattered to every country on the earth, and the sword chases them. So what they want for Israel is going to happen to them. Iraq may go with Iran. They may go down. And some people think Syria and Iraq is included with the land, Elam, which is Iran today, southwestern Iran, but it's in Iran, so Iran would entirely be affected, I believe. And some believe it's just a part of Syria, some think it's not Iraq, some think it is. There you go. And Edom will be a devastated wasteland. Now, Edom is a big threat to Yemen. Edom or Yemen stopped attacking ships in Israel when we did the ceasefire to Gaza, but they said they're ready and willing to start again. If somebody attacks Iran, there's a good chance that Yemen or Edom will rise up again. Don't know. Probably they will. That's probably why they get destroyed. The administration of Trump is now saying that Ukraine and Russia both have to be prepared to make concessions. They're telling Ukraine, they're saying Ukraine's never going to get back that piece of territory that Russia got. Russia's going to have to make concessions too, whatever those are. The Trump administration is keeping rather quiet about China and North Korea and potential war with Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, plus Guam, plus the Philippines. So that thing is still, we're not getting a lot of information. China and North Korea aren't really doing much about any of this right now. So we wait and we watch on that one. So for Elijah to emerge and teach the Levites in the temple and all that, or a tabernacle, I don't believe the drones and the missiles will be flying. It would be incumbent on Elijah to take the enemy out if that happened. And of course, I believe Elijah will be empowered and do signs and wonders to get the attention of everybody. So I don't believe he'd be working with missiles and drones and rockets and shooting and all the other stuff coming in. No. Not in the beginning, not till he gets it up to the level where the offerings become acceptable to the Lord. That means the blessings of the Lord come on Israel, and that means Israel has nothing but victory in war. And the Elijah thing psychs the enemies up bad enough they lay siege to Israel, probably to stop people and goods going in and out of Israel. And then, which is not an invasion. And then Elijah burns, and Apostle John in Zechariah 12:6 burn all the enemies up. And that is probably the day of vengeance, the first day of redemption. So actually, redemption didn't start on January 30th, the new year, but Jubilee year may have started, but not the year of redemption. The year of redemption doesn't have to adhere to the Jubilee year, which is a 12-month year. So it's very thick and hard to follow, I know that, but we try to get as much light as we can out of this. Let me see what I'm beeping with here. I think it's somebody sent me some kind of ad or something. Let me see. Oh, it's telling me without giving me my name, I've been approved to receive a loan. That's a scam. Yeah, but we need to get some information from you first. Give us all your qualifications, and then they'll try to rob you from something. I don't know. Maybe it's just a loan company. Who cares? All right. So the situation is not so stable. Now we know from Jeremiah 50:51 that there's an invasion coming from the utmost parts, which I would think is the northern part. Now that could be Alaska, which is close to the Bering Straits. I think 48 miles or something. Sometimes they freeze over and you can walk across, but it's a very fast boat ride from Russia, an hour and a half or 2 hours for the boats to come in and invade. Russian bombers yesterday just came close to Alaska again. It's the second time in the past few weeks. And they didn't go into Alaska airspace. They turned around and went back. But they're conducting nasty drills. And they would go into Alaska, then drop in through Canada. Now, Canada, under frustration with what's going on with Trump, may reach out to another country to save them from Trump. And the only real players that can save Canada from Trump, so to speak, would be Russia or China. And I have no idea. Canada doesn't have enough oil to be that enticing to uh, Canada, to China, maybe, but I don't know. Maybe China and Russia jointly would want to put troops in there and stuff like that. As soon as they start moving troops into Canada, Trump's going to see the writing on the wall. That's the problem with that. So what happens with Canada? I don't know. Trump already put the tariffs in place, and I'm sure Canada will reciprocate. You see, I think there's going to be a lot of countries standing up to Trump on the tariffs. I think all the BRICS countries will, and they'll try to bust him out with his own tariffs, and they might. It's a good scheme. If the other countries just back off and say, okay, Trump, what do you want? Well, he wants Canada as a state. Well, they don't want to do that. They'll get fired. They'll have nothing to do. Their wealth and risk will be a risk. They could get put in jail for what they did later on. They could get sued later on. You know, they don't want that. The leaders, the millionaires, the billionaires. So they'll resist. And the BRICS people too. So then Trump's plan becomes a harebrained something that looks like it was concocted by Wile E. Coyote to catch the roadrunner. See? How many people in America understand what I just said? Very few. It may not work. He wants to do BRICS at 100%. That's, I think, 29 countries. He wants to get the entire European Union on tariffs. Canada, Mexico. He wants to take the Panama Canal back. He wants to have Greenland and Canada as states. And he wants to do something with Mexico for sure. Guys, they're still fighting with Ukraine and Russia. China wants Taiwan. North Korea wants South Korea in the name of unification. The Middle East is ready to blow. And you think Trump and the American military are, after 4 years of Biden, are up to snuff to deal with this? I don't. Then he's making problems in the U.S. He's going after abortions, which the people in America don't want to stop killing babies. He wants to get rid of the transgender in the military to varying degrees or extents. I don't know. He wants to change to two sexes away from however many they say, 18, or I don't know what, you know. He's not going to be, you know, hawking LGBTQ rights, apparently. He's trying to affect what can be taught in the school. Anti-Semitism, getting people thrown out of the country, deporting all the so-called illegal immigrants in the United States, fortifying the borders, going into the sanctuary cities and getting them. Yeah, you know, it's good for America to do that, but the point I'm making is this is reminiscent against Hitler. A lot of people think that Hitler might have won the war if he never went into Russia. He invaded France successfully for a while. And other countries in Europe he invaded successfully. He would have eventually invaded Great Britain successfully. And then after he fortified his position, he could have picked off Russia. He could have negotiated with America and picked off Russia later on without America. And then at the same time, America was fighting in the Pacific against Japan. We're also fighting with Hitler's ally, Mussolini, in Italy, who I think proved very disappointing to Hitler. So there was all of this stuff going on, guys, at the same time for Hitler, and he blew it. Okay? Trump is starting up with too many people at one time, guys. If he alienates the EU, he alienates NATO. And he's going to alienate Canada and Mexico. Greenland is probably welcoming him. He's alienating Panama. China, North Korea, and Iran already hate him. You see what I'm saying? So do I think he's likely to attack Iran or have Israel attack Iran? Yes, because it's consistent with his problems. He knows he's in dire straits, but I think it's rather obvious he's doing way too much stuff to way too many people all at the same time. That's probably the snare, Jeremiah 50:24. If all of these countries go after him with counter tariffs, he said if Canada puts tariffs on American goods, what he's going to do is double the tariffs on Canada. And he's going to start with 100% tariffs on bricks. Too much, man. Prayer requests. Okay. GF, Girl Foxtrot. GF, Girl Foxtrot. Healing. This person's in the hospital, so it's serious for GF, Girl Foxtrot. Another prayer request for SZ, Sam Zebra. SZ, Sam Zebra. Healing. This person too happens to be in the hospital. So for SZ, healing as well. It doesn't look like Egypt is trying to invade Gaza with tanks and armored personnel carriers. I don't think that's an agenda at all. But what are they up to? That's a good question. And I'm pretty sure Trump and Netanyahu know what they're up to, but we're not getting told. Yesterday, Trump ordered strikes in Somalia, which is in Greater Israel. With something to do about ISIS attacking people hiding in caves and stuff like that. So Trump is definitely not afraid to attack. So why Somalia? I don't know. People are saying there's going to be, if Trump keeps expanding this with the importation of foreign goods with tariffs, there's going to be a lot of things in America people aren't going to be able to get or get cost effectively. What all they are yet remains to be seen. Okay. Now, just switching horses to Bible, when we read Matthew 24, we read the word then in many places, and you get this in, Luke 21, Luke 17, Mark 13. Then. And people get the impression that the word, the underlying Greek word, means in time succession. Now, they do this on purpose. So I did a deep dive into this word yesterday. The word doesn't mean that it comes in succession. It can also mean to a specific time period or a time for something to happen even in the future. And it need not be sequential to the previous verse. That's the meaning of this word. Sort of like saying at the prescribed time. Okay? Not necessarily sequential to the preceding verse. It's like at the prescribed time. And that'll help you better. And I've covered this before, but not as specific. That'll help you better understand the prophecies over there. Okay? Let me take a look at the live stream. All right, somebody, let me just get into the sequence. Am I left or right wing? Oh, the secular world would say I'm right wing, but I'm Bible wing. I go for the Bible. Somebody put in Hebrews 13, 1 to 3. Let's read it. Hebrews 13, 1 to 3. Let brotherly love continue. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Remember them that are in bonds as bound with them, and them which suffer adversity as being yourselves also in the body. Well, the good scriptures. All right. I don't see questions coming up, nor do I see prayer requests. So we're looking for Elijah to emerge and work openly. I don't believe that's in Malachi 3, flowing into 4. We also should read that with Zechariah 12. And I don't see, and there's a lot of believers in Jerusalem in Zechariah 12, around verse 3 or 4. So I maybe verse 5, it's up at the top. I don't see that happening with the war, with the rockets and the drones flying, so we're going to have to see. Right now, there are no rockets and drones flying. But the situation looks shaky. But on the other hand, Iran's not launching at us. Neither is the Houthis in Yemen. Neither is Syria. Neither is Iraq. Neither is Gaza. Neither is Lebanon. It looks like they might start, but they haven't started. All these wars in the world are likely going to be a part of Jeremiah 30, verse 11, where the Lord says he's going to destroy all the nations he scattered the Israelites into, which would be about 125 nations. One of those is definitely the United States. So there you have it, and that's kind of where we're going. So the wars look like they're building up, and Trump gave us a lot of unexpected surprises that are definitely increasing the tensions in the world against America. And when America gets invaded by, you read in Jeremiah 15:51, the sleeper agents are already there. Trump said there could be as many as 30 million illegals, and a highly placed guy in Border Patrol said 60 to 70% are sleeper agents, military age males coming into America by themselves, single, and that leads to millions and millions. I don't know what happened with the airplane crash in Pennsylvania or Washington, D.C. There could be all kinds of things. We could talk about jamming instruments, sending instruments false signals. We don't know why. Why didn't the plane visually observe the helicopter, or the helicopter visually observe the plane? There's a lot of things that we don't understand yet. But information will start to leak out unless Trump's able to effect a big, broad, deep cover-up. Trump's got the Federal Reserve against him. He's got the IRS against him. He's got many government employees against him. Many state governors, not that many, but a few state governors don't like him. It's a problem, okay? We know about the California wildfires, and in Jeremiah 50:51 it says, I will kindle fires in and about your cities. That could be the start of it. The continuing whirlwind of the Lord falling on the head of the wicked till it accomplishes what the Lord wants it to accomplish. May have started with all these, it means a tempest, storms, or a whirlwind, like a hurricane spins. When you look at the pictures from the top, it spins, tornadoes spin, and storms. And we had the big storms in America, cold fronts. There's more bad weather coming in America. So I don't know. I think we're starting to see that stuff. We're getting a little bit of frequency on earthquakes now. Haven't seen a lot of, really big, strong earthquakes. I would say would be at least an 8. Haven't seen much of that. Even you might say in some countries the housing is built so poorly, a 7.5 or a 7.8 would be a very major earthquake. The Bible doesn't have these Richter scale numbers. That's created by man. So great earthquakes in diverse places you read in, I think, Luke 21. And we're not seeing a lot of great earthquakes. We are seeing earthquakes, and we've always seen earthquakes for many, many years, the smaller ones. And we might occasionally would see a big one. Israel's also going to talk to Trump about getting more F-35s, more F-15 1As. I think they're called the advanced F-15. He's got a bunch on order. In the past, Biden led Israel, when he gave Israel so much money in financial aid, Israel was able to divert 25% of that to buying weapons from Israel weapon manufacturers, but it's reverted back to 100% of this money has to be spent with American weapon manufacturers. Now, this could revert back to letting Israel spend a certain amount inside Israel. I don't know. I imagine Netanyahu's going to try for that. Are we going to hit Iran, or is Trump going to hit Iran? I think somebody's going to hit Iran. And in Jeremiah 49, it says she's destroyed by her enemies, plural. So it's not just one country that does Iran in. So something's going to happen. And there's a looming threat from Iran over Israel right now, and Edom, Yemen. So we might see a volley of wars. Remember, Syria fell in 11 days. So don't think when I say wars, it's going to have to be a long period of time. It could be a few days, a week, or something. You know, America has a large amount of firepower, and Trump's just the kind of guy to deploy it. He's already irritating Europe, which means NATO's irritated, and he's irritating NATO individually by telling the nations they got to up their budgets to 5% instead of 2%, which is what it is now. Some countries will go for this and some won't. Some countries want to keep supporting Ukraine in the war, others don't. Grabbing Canada, Greenland, and Panama Canal and declaring war on the cartels in Mexico and shutting the border up and deporting them. Guys, Trump is stirring the pot like crazy. He's desperate. He knows time is short. He knows the sleeper agents are there. I heard him say there's probably 30 million in the United States. That's total illegals, aliens, and stuff, some of which got, they applied for asylum and they got temporary papers until 1932 or something like that. But, he's aware of this problem. He knows it's a very real problem. I don't believe his explanations on the drones is valid. I think it's a big lie. He said that the FAA had given permission for these drones to operate in these areas. So the FAA has given permission for drones to fly over military bases, nuclear energy sites, and other sensitive areas of the United States, like the Capitol. And the congressman didn't know about this permission. The FBI didn't know. The military didn't know. Nobody knew. And then all of a sudden, Trump says, "Oh, America authorized it." Biden didn't even know. So don't buy that story. It's nonsense. Come on. It's not. It's not good. Well, at this point, I guess that's all I got for today. I hope you got something out of it. And what we're trying to do is focus on Elijah appearing. And that would mean that Apostle John will also be active too. Maybe they're not doing the same exact thing at the same time, but he'll be active also. So pray for both of them to emerge quickly. Okay? I know from hearing from people that we're all going through a very, very hard time right now. Okay? It's extremely hard. We know what's going to happen, everlasting life and all that, and wealth and riches and living in Israel and it's restored and redeemed. We know that, but we're not there yet, and it's just a very difficult point in time to be at. You're not alone. I think everybody is growing weary and it's hard. And I would say a massive amount of people are crying out to the Lord, but keep crying out to the Lord. Like the woman that just keeps going to the judge for justice. Just keep asking. Ask for mercy and grace. Ask for him to make your way or your life easier. Just keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the two witnesses. Pray to come to Israel when they emerge, if this is what you're interested in. These are the days we gotta pray. If you want to fast and pray, fast and pray. These are the days we have to pray. Okay? We have to. I would think. So, please pray for me that I can recover quickly from the mourning of the loss of now, Chief, and I lost the offer. And some of you know that there's a good reason for that, thinking about Jerusalem. You know what I mean? And I learned a lot about death and stuff like that. And okay, so pray for me and my wife Rivka for our peace, safety, protection, joy. Pray for healing. We're both busted up. Look, the both of us went through a war for 15 months. She had to go to the hospital a while ago. You know, she's still recovering. I'm busted up over the dogs. I'm busted up in general. You know, it took its toll on all of us in Israel. Okay? On all of us. Okay, so we got to be prayerful. That's all I could say. There's no place to turn but Jehovah. There is no place to turn. That's the only place to turn. The Lord said to my Lord, sit down my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. That's what Jehovah's working on right now. But you got to do your prayers in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, you know. So that's the other thing we have to teach the people is what's his name? His name's not Jesus. There's no J in Hebrew. Now, I'll tell you that when I prayed for salvation, I didn't know his name was Yeshua. I prayed in Jesus' name and I received and all that, and other people have. But that's because God knows what's going on in our heart. And when I prayed, I was alone in my apartment. I wasn't in a church or anything like that. So they need to know his name, and Father God's name is Jehovah, not Jehovah. There's no J in Hebrew. You know, these is a lot of things they need to know. You can make a list like this. I mean, a huge list. Okay? Some of them really know God. They really have the Spirit, but they got false teachings. This is what I suspect. And they need to come out of it. We all came out of it, and there's still time for them to come out of it. Repentance not over, you know. They can still come out of it, so we need to be aware of that. You can't just lead somebody to the Lord and say, hey, good luck to you, see you around the campus, and just drop them. That's not correct. So me and my wife could definitely use prayer, and pray for better videos, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, pray for our finances, and pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and all. We still have the parrots from the rescue we got, and we got Mommy and Beulah, who look like they're doing just peachy. And they're doing fine, you know. And they weren't close with Chief. Nobody's going to mourn him in Dogland because he was old and grumpy and kept to himself. So they're not going to mourn the little guy. So anyway, that's what I've got. And pray for me that I keep on track after losing Yaffer and Chief. It hit me hard. Maybe I'm not as hard as I need to be in some ways, you know. But it hit me hard. And it changed me. Oh, it changed me. It really did. It showed me things about myself. Okay? Like I let this thing with Chief go on for years, and probably I shouldn't have. And he couldn't walk, then we'd all pray, he'd walk again, and then, you know, it was a lot of problems. He had a tumor, and he didn't have any teeth anymore for a few years, and one of his eyes was bad, you know, and that could have been about me more than about Chief's best interest, you know. I just didn't want to face it, you know. It just was very hard. So, look, I'm recovering. I gotta recover. Some of you write me and tell me that we're like a family here, and You don't know how good that makes me feel when you do that. I really like it when you write me and tell me how I'm doing, make suggestions, what I should cover. I like it. I open the door for that, you know. It helps me really when you tell me you're doing good, you're not doing good, this is why you're not doing good, or this is what I don't understand, can you cover this? And, you know, I try to do it, you know. I try, you know, and it gives me feedback, you know. So it also helps if you subscribe and hit the like button if you want to. Some people don't. A lot of people don't even hit the like button. So what are you going to do? People are people. So I appreciate the communication. The only thing I could say is for a lot of reasons, we're very, very close to Elijah starting to work. Believe me. We're really, really close. Is there a chance these wars that were under ceasefire, Lebanon and Gaza, will break out again? Yes. Is it a high probability? Probably not, but it could happen. And that would drag the Houthis back into it too. The guys running Syria are trying to watch the P's and Q's and not do much of anything. They just want to establish firm control, get an infrastructure, get their economy going, you know, just get seated. But when the time comes, they'll be in the siege. I believe Iraq will too. So we're waiting for stuff to start happening, and you know, you can see when the wars go, what likely could go is North Korea against South Korea and Japan, China against South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, and Guam, and the Philippines, and Australia would probably get into it. And then you got NATO versus Russia, and the EU versus Russia, and the Middle East stuff, and you know, just tensions in Africa. I mean, it's just a mess, guys. You know. And Trump is setting himself up for ruler against ruler in America. Look at all the enemies he's making. Lots of them. In the government. In the government. Military people, FBI people, all kinds of people that know a lot of things. All right, so I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I thank you for the prayers. Like I say, I ride on your prayers. I really need them now. And so, you know, my wife too, and we'll keep you going. I keep the Telegram up to date. I usually update a good 5-6 times a day, or 4 would be a very light day, maybe 7 or 8 times at times. So you should keep, you know, I'm mostly focused on America and the Middle East on the Telegram. A little bit with China, a little bit with Russia and Ukraine, mostly the Middle East, and heavy with America. That's what I'm focusing on, and that's it. So thank you for all the prayers, and that's it. So I hope you got something out of this, and I love hearing from you guys, and I'm out. Thank you.